our series on Bach's Orgelbüchlein. You know, when I started making these episodes a few months ago, I found that for each new episode that I made, I started to make comments like, oh, this is a wonderful piece, I really love this particular one. And I found that I was saying it about every one, and I hadn't realised quite how much I liked all of these pieces. And so I had to really fight with myself to stop saying it. But today I'm going to make an exception, and I will say it once more. Of all the Orgelbüchlein preludes, the one we have today is my absolute favourite. It's one of two preludes dealing with the Nunc Dimittis. It's Herr Gott, nun schleuß den Himmel auf. I'll put a translation of the text in the additional information below so that you'll know what the hymn is about. So this isn't one of the most dramatic of the Orgelbüchlein preludes. It's not one of the best known ones. And yet it is for me definitely the most beautiful of them all. It's unique in the Orgelbüchlein in being effectively a trio sonata, but it's not an ordinary trio sonata either because it's in 4 voices, running to 5 actually in that last bar. I get the impression almost that Bach had intended it to be a trio with the chorale melody alone at the top, and then decided that the chorale melody was too exposed, it needed something a little bit more, and so, being Bach, he quite happily invents a whole new format and writes an extra voice, effectively harmony notes for the right hand. And so this is something quite unlike anything else really that I can just think of. Bach usually writes in Orgelbüchlein, in fact he's very consistent about it, if he wants something to be played on 2 manuals, he always writes it at the top of the page, and he doesn't do in this particular case. But if we try to play both the hands on the same manual, there are collisions all over the place. One thing which I've spotted and which I've not seen written anywhere else is that if you just play the chorale melody, so not the harmony notes as well in the right hand, then there are no part crossings whatever. Which again makes me wonder whether Bach didn't originally intend the chorale melody alone in the right hand and then decided to add the harmony notes afterwards. I'm not sure. It doesn't really matter. The piece is absolutely perfect, whatever. But Bach was caught out, as in various other pieces here, because all the semiquavers in this piece make it so long that it ran very well over the 1 page which he'd allocated to it in the manuscript. And as we've said elsewhere, Bach really doesn't like page turns in this manuscript, and it's on the right-hand page. And so he has inserted an extra bit of paper on which he's written the conclusion of the piece. And even then, actually, he didn't have quite enough space, and so the last bar is written in tablature in the margin at the bottom. I think to play this piece, you really need to be calm and relaxed. You really can't play it if you're stressed. The pedals want to be lightly detached and a slight emphasis on the first note in each beat. The left-hand semiquavers don't want to be legato, certainly. They can be a kind of da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And that last beat in bar 6 could perhaps become a da-da-da-da-da to mark the beginning of the repeat immediately afterwards. Fingering on the left hand, you can restart your fingering for each beat, so you don't need fancy fingering which is going to create legato across the beats. So just have your hand in the right place for each beat. The same goes for the feet, incidentally. You don't need to cross your feet or foot substitution or anything else here. Just simply put the foot which is appropriate at the start of each beat. So there in bars 13 and I think it's 18 and 21 or something like that, in the middle of those bars, there's a jump from E to A, and you can take both of those with the right foot, and it's absolutely fine. Bar 19 onwards, there's something resembling twos against threes. We've talked about those before, that in the 18th century it was perfectly normal to write two quavers or dotted quaver, semiquaver against triplet quavers, and the rhythms would simply be accommodated so that the second quaver in the one part would be played against the third triplet in the other. It was not normal style to do twos against threes, although obviously if you really feel for it, then that's your prerogative and you can decide. There are 3 trills marked in bars 5, 11 and 23, I think, and all of those are from E to a trill on a D sharp, which means that you have already played the upper auxiliary, so you have a slight problem there. The one in bar 23 isn't such a problem because that comes at the end of a series of repeated E's, and so if you repeat the E's for the start of the trill, that doesn't really matter so much, but the other 2 you'd really want to avoid it if possible. And the 2 options there are either to hold the E over, to effectively tie it over to the upper auxiliary of the trill, or to start the trill, of course, on the main note. You might consider a trill on the G sharp in bar 18. That again would give you the same problem of the upper auxiliary. But in any event, I hope you really, really will enjoy playing this piece as much as I do.